Hey, this is Mr. Molo for lesson 4-1 puzzle time. The joke for this one is what paces back and forth on the ocean floor. So if you remember, lesson 4-1 is all about slope-intercept form. So y equals mx plus b. Okay, if we remember, m stands for slope, and b stands for y-intercept. Okay, so remember when we're finding these, we're going to have a couple different problems to how we find it. The first couple are going to be a little easier because they give us all the information, and then we might need to do some math on the next couple of problems to figure it out. So like I said, 1, 2, 3, 4, they give us all of our information. The slope is 3, the y-intercept is -8. So I'm just going to write it out. So y equals, instead of mx over here, they tell me the slope is 3. So I'm going to write 3x. Instead of plus b, they tell me the y-intercept is -8. So I'm going to write -8. So that gets matched with letter E over here. Same thing with, let's say, like number 5. So y equals, they tell me the slope is 5, so 5x. And then they tell me the y-intercept is 7/8, so plus 7/8. So letter S right there. So those ones are a little easier because they tell us all the information. 5 through 9, they tell us half of the information. So if you remember, the y-intercept is when the graph crosses the y line. So in order for it to cross the y line, the x has to be 0. So they tell us that for all these problems. Our y-intercept for number 5 is -6 because the x is 0. The y-intercept for number 6 is -3 because x is 0 there. The y-intercept for number 7 is 4, x is 0 there. Number 8 is -11, the x is 0 there. And number 9 is 1.4 because that's where the x is 0. All these problems, like next section, they won't always give you that. So we're going to have to do some more math to figure out the y-intercept. But section 1, they kind of ease you in and give you all the y-intercepts if you know what to look for there. So we still do need to find the slope. And if you remember from the video yesterday, to find the slope, we're going to use this formula, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So pretty much we're just going to subtract our y's from each other from the second point to the first point. So like for this one, I'm going to do -6. That's the second y, minus 2. That's the first y. And then same thing with the x's, 0 minus 4. 0 is the second x, 4 is the first x. So -6 minus 2 is -8. 0 minus 4 is -4. I can simplify that and get 2. So now I know my equation, or my slope, is y equals 2x. And then if we look back from what I said before, our y-intercept here is -6 because that's when the x is 0. And so that's going to be letter R right here. And if we look at, let's say, I don't know, number 7, might be a little tricky on the y-intercept because you might see 2 zeros there. But remember, y-intercept is when x is 0, not when y is 0. So we still have to find our slope here. So I'm going to subtract 4 minus 0, and then 0 minus 3 when I subtract my y, or my x's there. So 4 minus 0 is 4, 0 minus 3 is -3. I can't simplify that anymore, so my slope is just -4/3. So y equals -4/3 x, and our y-intercept there is 4. So letter R. 10 through 12 are really the same thing. They just give you your x's and y's a little differently here. So this is our x, this is our y, this is our x, this is our y. So really they're still giving us those points there. It just looks a little different because they're doing it as f of 0 and f of 7, but really it's just the same thing. So if I look at number 10 here, so I'm going to do 1 minus a -7, subtracting my y's. And then if I subtract my x's, 7 minus 0. So 1 minus a -7. Since it's a negative, it turns into a plus. So 1 plus 7 is 8. 7 minus 0 is 7. So I know my slope is 8/7. And then same thing as I said before, this section they're going to give you the y-intercept. So there's my x being 0, and I know my y-intercept then is -7. Same thing here, like number 11. My y-intercept is going to be 5 for that one. Here, on number 12, my y-intercept is going to be -1/3. Otherwise, 10, 11, 12 are exactly like 5 through 9 there. 13, so here's a real-life example. So your parents, especially if you ask them for help on something like this, they might not remember slope and y-intercept, but it is something that we kind of use every day. So if we're looking at a problem like this, so the water park charges $125 for a birthday party. So that's going to be the y-intercept. Okay, so in real life example, a y-intercept is something that you pay one time, regardless of the use. So another common example of a y-intercept is like paying for Netflix. You can watch 1,000 shows on Netflix a month, or you can watch one show on Netflix a month, and you're still paying the same, whatever, $9 a month. That is the y-intercept. That is the standard rate. That's what you're paying no matter what happens. So if we're thinking about something like this, like a water park, so usually at water parks they have like cabanas or tents or something that you can rent so that you're not just sitting there trying to find a chair for stuff like that. So some of you have maybe done that for birthday parties, or if you go to like a hotel, they have those rooms that you can rent, and this is charging $125 for that room. So no matter what, you are paying $125 for this birthday party, so that's going to be that y-intercept at the end. Again, call the hotel or call the water park, they're not going to say, oh, our y-intercept is $125, but they're going to say like, oh, we charge $125 for every tent that you rent, or to rent a tent or whatever. Guests cost $12 each. So usually when you see this word each or per or something like that, that's going to be our slope. So for every person that comes in, they're going to have to pay $12 to get in, just like you pay money to get into Valley Fair or anything else. That's going to be there. So anytime you see something that happens every time, that's going to be something like our slope. So again, something that happens in everyday life, you go to the movies, it's $12 a ticket, it's $10 a ticket. Again, the person taking your money isn't going to say like, oh, the slope is $10 per ticket. No, they're just going to say it's $10 a ticket. But really, if we're talking math terms, that would be something that would be our slope. So to answer our joke here, what paces back and forth on the ocean floor? The answer is a nervous wreck.